Welcome to the session of values driven decision making. I'm Deepak, founder and CEO of Meaning Quotient MQ Learning. So, what are we going to do in the next 25 minutes together? So, let's talk about the objectives and agenda for this session. So, the first, we'll be understanding the importance of values, a very simple thing, but sometimes we miss it out. And then we'll take to a journey on how to determine your individual values. And the next step would be to learn how to use values for decision making. Before we go further, let me give a little bit overview about myself. So I've done my master's in the fields of technology, strategy, and philosophy, and I've worked 15 plus years in corporate world in various areas from AI and robotics to learning and development to strategy consulting. After working a lot in various fields, when I reconnected to my own value system, I realized education is one field where I would like to focus on, and hence the company was formed. And why education? Because I'm passionate about learning what is being human. And I believe values is that North Star that guides our life. And by connecting to our values, we become more of ourselves. So let's go and try to find out why values are important. But before that, I just want to ask you, how do you make decisions? When I've asked this question to a few people, some said, oh, I make decisions rationally. I have a pro and con list. I just make everything strategic and see what needs to be done. Some people said, I make decisions emotionally. Okay, when I think about a decision, what emotion that does it evoke? What does my somatic awareness says? What does my gut feel says? And some people use a mixture of both, emotional, rational, gut feel, or sometimes include gut feel or something else. But I believe there's one more tool we should use for making decisions. And that tool makes us human. And that tool, from my perspective, is values. Why values? Why values are so important? For finding the answer, we'll go 2,500 years back to Aristotle. Aristotle coined the word called eudaimonia. And for him, this was the answer of how we should lead our life and why we should lead our life. Eudaimonia is a Greek word which is a combination of two words, eu, which means good, and daimon, which means spirits. So if we put it together, it means good spirits. Some people call it happiness, if we loosely translate into English. I would be more comfortable with the word for flourishing, living well, self fulfillment. It's not the happiness which is temporal, it is something which is deeply satisfying. And when we live a life full of values or virtues in the time of Aristotle, we lead to a life of eudaimonia, the condition of living well, human flourishing. So, values are the tool which connect us to this field of eudaimonia. Then the question arises, what are my values? Do I know my values? I would still say if you think that you know your values, to try to find out again. And one of the ways to find your values is go back into the exaggerated situations. What do we mean by exaggerated situations are when we are very, very sad or when we are very, very happy. Values have a particular characteristic that they get emboldened in exaggerated situations. So let's take an example like when we are very sad. Sad includes angry, frustration, completely unseen, completely unmet. And then we take decisions. Then we would know which values were stepped upon. and which values we would like to stand for. Let me take an example of myself. There was a time in my career I joined an organization, and after 6 months, I got demoted. It was a very difficult period of my life because I was always very good in my studies and in the company, so I could not digest that sort of failure. It's why me? Am I doing something wrong? Why I'm not fitting well here? And then I realized I probably am in the wrong place, doing the wrong task. Work was mainly about administration and structuring the thoughts, but not too much of knowledge and wisdom. And I realized one of my value is wisdom or knowledge. And I was not able to contribute to that. So I was not making myself happy by being in that place. Hence, I was not performing to the level which they were expecting. I was just a misfit to the job. And that's when I realized that whatever I do in my life, it needs to be aligned with knowledge or wisdom, some type of seeking or quest. That incident gave me one of my values very deeply, very strongly, and with an external results. And let us go to a completely opposite situation, an accelerated situation when we are very happy. We don't know why, but we are seen, we are met. It seems we are living the life we should be living. And sometimes there doesn't have to be any reason for that. It could be just walking on the road and seeing a leaf fall. Ah, I'm happy. Then what values are met? What values are honored? This is also a time to step back and reflect. Why we were so happy? What made us so happy? What values were honored? So just another example, myself, I was on a vacation in Hawaii. I was supposed to join some community retreat, but I decided that I'm not going to live in that community for the retreat. But I just took a car off and then went to different oceans. And when I was there, sitting just across the ocean, I feel a sense of complete happiness, total in the moment. There was nothing else which I wanted more at that moment than being in that moment. And when I reflected back what was there, I felt the sheer joy, the joy of being alive, the joy of being able to connect with nature. And the other thing was nature, that whatever I do, wherever I live, I need to be surrounded by nature. So I found my values in this situation, in one situation, value of wisdom, in another situation, value of joy, and also connection with nature. So if we talk about values, what are values? These are values. We're not looking for a definition of a value. Value is something which we connect with. So what are your difficult and happy situations? Can you reflect back on them and see if there's a chance of getting some values from there? This is one way of finding your values. There are many other ways you can find it on the internet. You can find the list of different values. You can look into that list and see which values you resonate most. So when you know your values, you know what you're aiming for. Just for example, for me, everything which I do has to have a component of wisdom and joy. Otherwise, I will be questioning why I'm doing that. The approach we have talked about is an inner approach. We look into our life, we look into our positive and negative moments, incidents, and then try to find out our values in those incidents or through those incidents. There's one other way to find our values, which is an external approach. External approach is looking around us, looking around our people who helped us grow. What are the values we appreciated in them? some leaders which we aspire towards? What are the values we aspire towards? It can come from people, it can come from any other being, it can come from animals, it can come from gods, especially from the polytheistic culture. What inspires us? Because when we appreciate something, there might be some part of that that we want to take with us together. I would like to tell you a story for that on that also. So a good friend of mine, she grew up in 1970s in a conservative Italian American family. I did a podcast with her, so I can share her story. And as part of conservative Italian American family, what was expected of her was to make bed for her brothers. What she wanted to become was a successful businesswoman. There was nobody around her which could have given that aspiration. And she found aspiration in a TV character of a successful businesswoman. And that's when she said, "This is what I want to become." And unconsciously, she cultivated the values from that businesswoman, the values around success, the values around hard work, the values about studies. And using their values, she really became a big name on the Wall Street. Sometimes by looking outside what we appreciate the most, we can find our internal values. So, what I would like you to do is if you can sit and look into your inner positive and negative moments and see what values you aspire for, and also look for the leaders, the people around you, or characters, and see what values you aspire for from there. Make a list of those values and shortlist. You might get a very personalized list of your own individual values. Having a list of values, your own individual values, is just a first step. The values get activated when we live them in our daily life. And one of the ways to live the values in daily life is to use it in every decision and action we take. And that takes me to the next line. How do we make decisions using values? How do we live the values again and again through every decision? This concept was developed by University of California, Davis, and we are presenting an adapted version of that. So when we're talking about the values, we just put the options and then take these options to different stages. So let's go with stage number one. Normally, when we talk about the options, we go for the options like yes, no, maybe, or A, B, or C. I would say don't take more than three options because otherwise it just become too many options. But let's try to make this option that they're collectively exhausted. There's no other option left out. So let me explain that also taking an example. So in the story which I want to share is from 2021. It was a COVID time, and my family lives back in India, and friends and family, and it was a very difficult time for us there. I was living in Switzerland at that time, and one day a friend called, and he asked me that they are doing something for people who are going through COVID at the same time. Would I be available to help since everything is also closed here? And then a lot of thought process start. Of course, my first thought was, let's say yes. But then I say, no, there's something missing in that yes. Not a strong yes. Then I said, let me take it through my value system. So the option which I had at that point is to say, yes, I'm going to do that. One of my other values is service. And doing the things for the people when they need the most would really honor that value, service. The second option could be no, One of the other thing which I have not mentioned is I was also going through a lot of emotional vulnerability at the same time. It was not easy for me to be here when everything was not working, and also at a different part of the world when everybody is struggling, including my family. I was emotionally not very well available to help. And then I said, yeah. So when we talk about joy, I also was want to talk about self-joy, self-love. And I was not in the right position to do that. So some part of me saying, let's say no. And the third option was probably maybe. Yeah, I might go for that. Let's see what's happening. So let's put the options. Option number one, yes. Option number two, maybe because it's in between. And option number three, no. So when I took it through stage one, there were various questions I took it through. So the first question is which option conflict with my values? Then I realized saying no definitely conflict with my value of service. So this is something which I was not ready to do. Other questions, there could be one question you can use or a few questions. So one other question is which option aligns with my values? So definitely saying yes aligns with my values. And option number two may be aligned with some value because it also takes some value of self joy in it. And option number three is which option align with some values and partially conflict with other values. And and then that was my option number three, align with self-love but conflict with service there. So considering that, one thing which I totally avoided is which option conflicts with my values. I took that out. So option number three, conflict with my values, I'm not taking it to the next stage. Then I have two options. Option one, I say yes to help. Option number two, I say maybe to help, maybe with some conditions or something like that, whatever shape and form it is. Then I take it through another stage, question, another level of questions. Which values do I want to honor at this moment? And I realized I wanted to honor both service and self-joy. I didn't want to honor only one. Which values can I compromise in that case? And I realized I can compromise some part of service in that case. Can an option be modified to fit my values? Then I think, yeah, maybe I'll take the option number two, which is maybe, and give back with the proposition and modify it to 2A, which can honor some values. So I went back to the person and said, I would like to help, but I'm not in a very, very emotionally stable position at this moment. Is it possible that I can do something for 2 days a week or something and also work on some activities which also give me joy? So I said I might not be able to contribute to any admin work, but some other work around creativity or something, I would be ready to contribute in a way which I can honor the value of service and self joy. So using this framework, I made a decision and I went back to that person and communicated that decision. I could have done it without using the values framework. However, what helped me by using the values framework by making this decision is I didn't have a guilty feel. And some part of me would have said, no, I should be doing something. But I took a step back. I said, what is right for me at this moment? What are right for my values? Not the societal values, but my value system. And I went with option 2A, maybe with a modified conditions. And just to close the story, the person came back to me and told me that actually they found somebody who can work for much longer time, and they're very happy that I was very honest and authentic with them, and even they asked me if they could help me in any ways. And it was a wonderful, and I'm still in a very good contact with that person. So, using this values framework, I was also able to communicate my decision well to them and take them through the process, which they also understand. So, the world I'm looking for is we use these type of frameworks, we use a value system for every decision we make, every action we take. When we are using it always and again, we might create a world we would like to thrive in. At the same time, leading a self fulfilling, eudaimonic life. I would like to end with a statement by Roy Disney. It is not difficult to make decisions when you know what your values are. My wish for you is you connect with your values, and not only that, try to use it in your daily life. So if it's too complicated, the framework, you can just say, which values I want to honor with this decision. Even a simple question like that can change the course of your decision, which can change the course of the world we are living in. Thank you.